Blake Hurst, Northwest Missouri farmer and Missouri Farm Bureau former president, joins us now. So, in terms of on the ground, some of the things that you're dealing with right now, what are some of the pressures that are mounting on farmers at the moment?
Well, as the article you quoted said, there have been shortages. We were able to get the chemicals we need, but we did some switching around, some difference in our formulations that we use. And of course, the prices are 2 to 3 times higher than what we were paying a year ago.
Are you able to, Blake, put in context how much more the cost of business is in the last year than it was prior to the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, et cetera?
Well, I would guess that about half of our inputs, fertilizer chemicals, have been directly affected by price increases of 100% or better. So we're looking at a 25 to 50% increase in the cost of doing business. Commodity prices have been strong, so that obviously helps pay those bills, but it has been a real shock.
Blake, you're also dealing with the climate factor as well. I know in your home state of Missouri, this has been an issue. Are you switching what crops you're planting? Are you not planting as much as a result of all of these factors that's hurting your business?
No, prices are strong, so people are certainly planting all the crop acres they have available. Now, we've seen a shift, at least in planting intentions. We won't know till later on this month what the actual first report on actual planting will be. Planting intentions showed a shift to soybeans, an increase in soybeans, a decrease in corn acres. Not coincidentally, corn takes much more fertilizer than soybeans.
And
so people are responding to those increasing fertilizer prices.
So as we look at some of these input costs that you mentioned, when you from the seed to the end in terms of fertilizer and everything else, we are seeing that the Department of Agriculture is really doing some scrutiny when it comes to some of these fertilizer companies to make sure that they're not price gouging farmers. In terms of the costs now versus perhaps at the beginning of the pandemic, are you seeing some sort of hope at the end of the tunnel?
Well, the government seems to be working at cross purposes, but because the USDA is looking into price gouging into the fertilizer market, but at the same time, the Federal Trade Commission has found that some of the companies that import fertilizer in the U.S. are dumping at a time when prices have tripled and have actually put tariffs on the importation of fertilizer. Much of our fertilizer is imported. So it seems like one hand we're doing one thing, on the other hand, we're doing exactly the opposite. We need to remove those tariffs and give farmers to access to fertilizer from wherever it's produced.
So a lot of factors impacting your business there, and now these chemical shortages hitting U.S. farms. If you could talk about that, how that's impacting you as well.
Well, as I said, we've had to change our crop mix over the Midwest a little bit. Part of that is access to inputs. We've also seen some folks, when I talked to my chemical supplier a few days ago, he's recommending a little bit different formulations in order to make up for those chemicals that are certainly in short supply. And he's noticed some of the most common commodity type chemicals that have several producers have been the ones that have been the shortest, which is sort of unusual.
And as we see some of these costs get passed on to consumers, we see things like even the cost of eggs, inflation really hitting everything. What are some of the discussions that you're having with farmers about having to pass some of these costs on?
Well, obviously, we're price takers and don't make the price. And typically when we have like a short crop like we did in 2012, and you see an increase in the farm gate prices for corn, wheat, and soybeans, the consumer may not notice because in the processed food that she buys, so much of the cost is added after the farm. What we're seeing now is not only we are having increased farm prices, but of course the price of transportation, processing, and marketing of that food is also facing high inflation. And that's why it's hitting the consumer's pocketbook quite so hard. So it is, I think, a really serious situation.
Is this chasing farmers away from the industry altogether? And lastly, you mentioned the tariffs. What else would you like to see your elected officials do that could help?
Well, we have to do what we can to decrease the cost of fuel. You're showing a picture of a combine on the screen, our combine holds 250 gallons. Last year when I filled it up, it might have cost me $500, $600. This year